Vesak. History. Holds onto a branch of a tree while giving birth to the Buddha, who is received by Akra as other gods look on. The decision to agree to celebrate Visakha as the Buddha's birthday was formalized at the first conference of the World Fellowship of Buddhists held in Sri Lanka in 1950. Although festivals at this time in the Buddhist world are a centuries-old tradition, the resolution that was adopted at the World Conference reads as follows: on Visakha Day, Buddhists all over the world commemorate events of significance to Buddhists of all traditions, the birth, enlightenment and the passing away of Gautama Buddha. As Buddhism spread from India, it was assimilated into many foreign cultures, and consequently Visakha is celebrated in many different ways all over the world. In India, Vaishak Purnima Day is also known as Buddha Jayanti Day, and has been traditionally accepted as Buddha's birthday. In 1999, the United Nations resolved to internationally observe the Day of Vesak at its headquarters and offices. The name of the observance is derived from the Pali term as Sanskrit, which is the name of the lunar month in the Hindu calendar falling in April to May. In Mahayana Buddhist traditions, the holiday is known by its Sanskrit name, and derived variants of it. Local renditions of the name vary by language, including Buddho Purnima, Buddho Jayanti Dukan Nazam, Full Moon Day of Kasan, Buddha Purnima, Buddha Jayanti, Vesak Purnima, Hanamatsuri Vaisak Bochaya, Buddha Purnami Viksaka Boaswania Punhi, Buddha Purnima, Buddha Jayanti Vesak Vikakatanam Buddha Purnami, or alternatively Vaisakha Purnami Wazaka Buka. Celebration. May 2007 had two full moon days, the 1st and the 31st. Some countries celebrated Visakha on the 1st, and others celebrated the holiday on the 31st, because of a different local lunar observance. The difference also manifests in the observance of other Buddhist holidays, which are traditionally observed at the local full moon. Likewise, in 2012, Vesak was observed on the 28th of April in Hong Kong and Taiwan, on the 5th of May in Sri Lanka, on the 6th of May in India, on the 28th of May in South Korea and on the 4th of June in Thailand. In 2014, Vesak is celebrated on the 13th of May in Myanmar, Singapore, and Thailand, while it is observed on the 15th of May in Indonesia. On Visakha, devout Buddhists and followers alike assemble in the various temples before dawn for the ceremonial and honorable hoisting of the Buddhist flag, and the singing of hymns in praise of the Holy Triple Gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Devotees may bring simple offerings of flowers, candles and joss sticks to lay at the feet of their teacher. These symbolic offerings are to remind followers that just as the beautiful flowers would wither away after a short while, and the candles and joss sticks would soon burn out, so too is life subject to decay and destruction. Devotees are enjoined to make a special effort to refrain from killing of any kind. They are encouraged to partake of vegetarian food for the day. In some countries, notably Sri Lanka, 2 days are set aside for the celebration of Visakha, and all liquor shops and slaughterhouses are closed by government decree during the 2 days. Also birds, insects, and animals are released by the thousands in what is known as a symbolic act of liberation, of giving freedom to those who are in captivity, imprisoned, or tortured against their will. Some devout Buddhists will wear a simple white dress and spend the whole day in temples with renewed determination to observe the 8 precepts. Devout Buddhists undertake to lead a noble life according to the teaching by making daily affirmations to observe the 5 precepts. However, On special days, notably new moon and full moon days, they observe the 8 precepts to train themselves to practice morality, simplicity, and humility. Some temples also display a small statue of the Buddha in front of the altar in a small basin filled with water and decorated with flowers, allowing devotees to pour water over the statue. It is symbolic of the cleansing of a practitioner's bad karma, and to reenact the events following the Buddha's birth, when devas and spirits made heavenly offerings to him. Devotees are expected to listen to talks given by monks. On this day, monks will recite verses uttered by the Buddha 25 centuries ago to invoke peace and happiness for the government and the people. Buddhists are reminded to live in harmony with people of other faiths and to respect the beliefs of other people as the Buddha taught. Bringing happiness to others. Celebrating Vesakha also means making special efforts to bring happiness to the unfortunate, like the aged, the handicapped and the sick. To this day, Buddhists will distribute gifts in cash and kind to various charitable homes throughout the country. Vesakha is also a time for great joy and happiness, expressed not by pandering to one's appetites, but by concentrating on useful activities such as decorating and illuminating temples, painting, and creating exquisite scenes from the life of the Buddha for public dissemination. Devout Buddhists also vie with one another to provide refreshments and vegetarian food to followers who visit the temple to pay homage to the Enlightened One. Paying homage to the Buddha. Tradition ascribes to the Buddha himself instruction on how to pay him homage. Just before he died, he saw his faithful attendant Ananda weeping. The Buddha advised him not to weep, but to understand the universal law that all compounded things must disintegrate. He advised everyone not to cry over the disintegration of the physical body, but to regard his teachings as their teacher from then on, because only the Dharma truth is eternal, and not subject to the law of change. He also stressed that the way to pay homage to him was not merely by offering flowers, incense, and lights, but by truly and sincerely striving to follow his teachings. This is how Buddhists are expected to celebrate Vesak, to use the opportunity to reiterate their determination to lead noble lives, to develop their minds, to practice loving kindness and to bring peace and harmony to humanity. Dates of observance. The exact date of Vesak is based on the Asian lunisolar calendars, and is primarily celebrated in Vesakha month of the Buddhist calendar and the Hindu calendar, and hence the name Vesak. In Nepal, which is considered the birth country of Buddha, it is celebrated on the full moon day of the Vesakha month of the Hindu calendar, and is traditionally called Buddha Purnima, Purnima meaning the full moon day in Sanskrit. In Theravada countries following the Buddhist calendar, it falls on a full moon Upasadha day, typically in the 5th or 6th lunar month. Nowadays, in Sri Lanka, Nepal, India, Vesak, Buddha Purnima is celebrated on the day of the full moon in May in the Gregorian calendar. In Thailand, Laos, Indonesia, Vesak is celebrated on the 14th or 15th day of the 4th month in the Chinese lunar calendar. In China and Korea, Vietnam, Buddha's birthday is celebrated on the 8th day of the 4th month in the Chinese lunar calendar. In Japan the same day, but in the Gregorian calendar. The date varies from year to year in the Western Gregorian calendar, but usually falls in April or May. In leap years it may be celebrated in June. India, 2011. In Japan, Vesakha is also known as, and It is not a public holiday. It is based on a legend that a dragon appeared in the sky on the Buddha's birthday and poured soma over him. It used to be celebrated on the 8th day of the 4th month in the Chinese calendar based on one of the legends that proclaims the day as Buddha's birthday. At present, the celebration is observed on the 8th of April of the solar calendar since the government of Meiji, Japan, adopted the Western solar calendar as the official calendar. Since the 8th day of the 4th month in the lunar calendar commonly falls in May of the current solar calendar, it is now celebrated about a month earlier. In Japan, Vesak celebrations include pouring a sweet tea made from hydrangea macrophylla on statues. In Buddhist religious sites such as temples and viharas, more involved ceremonies are conducted for lay Buddhists, priests, and monks and nuns. In Nepal, Vesak, commonly known in Nepal as Buddha Jayanti, is widely celebrated all across the country. Predominantly, Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha, and Swayambhu, the holy temple for Buddhists, also known as the Monkey Temple. The main door of Swayambhu is opened only on this very day. Therefore, people from all over Kathmandu Valley are stimulated by the event. Thousands of pilgrims from various parts of the world come together to celebrate Buddha's birthday. At his birthplace, Lumbini, in Nepal, Buddha is worshipped by all religious groups. Therefore, Buddha Jayanti is marked by a public holiday. People donate foods and clothes to the needy and also provide financial aid to monasteries and schools where Buddhism is taught and practiced. In Sri Lanka, or Thorana in Colombo, Sri Lanka, Vesak is celebrated as a religious and a cultural festival in Sri Lanka on the full moon of the lunar month of Vesak, for about 1 week. During this week, the selling of alcohol and fresh meat is usually prohibited, with abattoirs also being closed. Celebrations include religious and almsgiving activities. Electrically lit pandals called thoranas are erected in locations mainly in Colombo, Kandy, Galle, and elsewhere, most sponsored by donors, religious societies and welfare groups. Each pandal illustrates a story from the Jataka tales. In addition, colorful lanterns called Vesak Kudu are hung along streets and in front of homes. They signify the light of the Buddha, Dharma and the Sangha. Food stalls set up by Buddhist devotees called dansalas provide free food and drinks to passers-by. Groups of people from community organizations, businesses, and government departments sing Bhakti Ji. Colombo experiences a massive influx of people from all parts of the country during this week. In Korea, in South Korea, the birthday of Buddha is celebrated on the 8th day of the 4th month in the Korean lunar calendar and is an official holiday. This day is called, meaning, Buddha's birthday, meaning, the day when the Buddha came. It has now grown into one of the nation's biggest cultural festivals. Lotus lanterns cover the entire temple throughout the month, which are often flooded down the street. On the day of Buddha's birth, many temples provide free meals and tea to all visitors. The breakfast and lunch provided are often sanchi bibimbap. In Laos, the Visakha Boa festival is the Lao version of the Thai Visakha Puja, which it closely resembles. It commemorates the birth, enlightenment, and death of the Buddha, which are all said to have happened on the same date. It is held around the month of May Vesak, based on the lunar calendar. Celebrations include dances, poems, parades, processions, deep meditation, theatrical performances, and puppet shows. Boun Bang Fay One part of the Vesak Boa festival is called Boun Bang Fay, or Rocket Festival, as this occurs during the hottest and driest season of the year. Large homemade rockets are launched into the sky in an attempt to convince the celestial beings to send down rain. Traditionally, Buddhist monks made the rockets out of hollow bamboo tubes filled with gunpowder. Nowadays, lay people make the Bang Fay more like fireworks and hold competitions for the highest, fastest, and most colorful rockets. The event takes place on both sides of the Mekong River border between Thailand and the Lao People's Democratic Republic, and sometimes teams from the neighboring countries will compete against each other. Tourists travel long distances to witness this now popular event. In Vietnam, before 1975, the birthday of Buddha was a national public holiday in South Vietnam. It was a public festival, with float and lantern parades on the streets. However, after the fall of Saigon, the day was no longer a public holiday. In Malaysia, celebrated by Buddhists to mark three momentous events in Buddha's life: his birth, enlightenment, and his departure from the human world. The Wesak celebration in Malaysia begins at dawn when devotees gather at Buddhist temples nationwide to meditate on the 8 precepts. Donations, giving food to the needy, and offerings of incense and joss sticks and prayers are carried out. The sutras are chanted in unison by monks in saffron robes. The celebration is highlighted by a candle procession. Wesak Day in Malaysia is a national public holiday. In Indonesia, this significant and traditional holy day is observed throughout Indonesia, where it is known as Wesak Day. At Borobudur, thousands of Buddhist monks will join together to repeat mantras and meditate as they circuit the temple in a ritual called Pradaksina. This is a form of tribute to the temple. Monks celebrate the special day by bottling holy water and transporting flames from location to location. The monks also took part in the Pindapata ritual, where they received charity from the people of Indonesia. Wesak Day in Indonesia has been celebrated as a national public holiday every year since 1983. In Singapore, Vesak Day was made a public holiday only in 1955 after many public petitions. In the early decades of the 20th century, Vesak Day was associated with the Ceylonese community, which then celebrated it along with their national day in a 2-day event. After World War II, there was a movement to make Vesak Day a public holiday, with the Singapore Buddhist Association leading the petitions. At the United Nations, in 1999, the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 54/115, entitled International Recognition of the Day of Vesak at United Nations Headquarters and other United Nations offices. The resolution internationally recognized the Day of Vesak to acknowledge the contributions that Lord Buddha and Buddhism have made for over 2.5 millennia. It also called for annual commemoration of the day at the UN headquarters in New York, and other UN offices around the world. The Day of Vesak is an official holiday for the UN offices in many of the countries in the Southeast Asia. Thank you for watching. Please like,